I was 15 years old. I weighed an even 120 pounds. I was what you might call scrawny, skin and bones. And looking at me now, I look nothing like I did. And I stood there in my pieced together armor, holding a shield that was way too big for me, and I'm staring down at a man twice my size with a shield that seems bigger than me. And he closes the distance faster than I thought possible, and he connects his shield with mine and gives me a mighty shove. I never knew what it was like to fly until that day, because I sailed through the air backwards, trying to rethink all of my life choices up to that moment. And I landed sprawled out on the ground about 10 feet behind where I was standing, my helmet on the ground, my shield still strapped to my arm, and my sword wedged painfully below me from where I attempted to catch myself. I learned two very important things that day. One, don't try to brace your fall with a sword. It's not pleasant. And two, footwork is everything. I quickly learned the reason I had flown had everything to do with how I was standing. My feet were rooted to the spot in the most inefficient way possible. No matter how big or small you are, if you are standing flat-footed, feet side by side, you're nowhere near as secure as if you're standing in a firm stance. And this is the same in any type of martial combat or any contact sport. And you can test this out too. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart and have someone push you. It's pretty easy to knock you over. And then move your legs into more of a fighting stance, one in front of the other, braced to the ground, and try the same things. Odds are, you're much tougher to push over. Why is that? Because you are standing in a firm stance. And this little trick changed so much about my balance and fortitude in battle. Footwork is a foundational piece of every encounter, but it is also just a small step into being prepared for battle. And just like soldiers wear body armor and doctors wear personal protective equipment, football players wear padding and boxers wear face masks, when it comes to our faith, we have armor to put on. For as long as the planet has had people on it, some form of protection has been necessary. There wasn't an early version of the police department, so people had to figure out how to protect themselves, especially when they were going into battle. And the earliest versions of armor were made out of rib bones, hard leather, and wood. Later, around 400 BC, the Romans created a version of armor that was made of metal. And during the Middle Ages, from about 400 AD to 1500 AD, armor became what you probably think of when you think about armor today, much like this. And it was so heavy that it took two men just to carry it around. Eventually, people figured out how to use gunpowder, and the armor couldn't stand up to bullets, so metal armor wasn't much use after that. Now, police and soldiers use bulletproof vests made of lightweight, strong material called Kevlar, which is made by scientists. And here's a fun fact. Since Kevlar vests were invented, they have saved over 1,000 police officers' lives. That's pretty cool. Armor has always been important, so we shouldn't be surprised that the Bible mentions armor. There are a few verses in the New Testament that we're going to look at for this week and for the next few weeks for this series. The verses are in a letter called Ephesians, and they talk about something called the armor of God. And let me share the idea with you, and then I'll tell you why it's so important. A final word: be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against the strategies of the devil. Ephesians 6:10 through 11.
Have you ever experienced a time where you felt like your faith really grew?
Last camp.
What do you think caused that at camp?
I think just like being like surrounded like what God created, and like a whole bunch of people that like he purposely chose to put into your life. There was like a 2-week honeymoon. I was like, all right, I'm with this.
Yeah.
But then like after that, I kind of just like dwindled. I was like, yeah.
I think at Camp IX, because like it's a full week of like religious-based activities, and like it's very biblical, and you're surrounded by that for a week, and like when you come home, you're still like in that kind of mental state, I guess. And then slowly but surely, it just kind of like drains out of you, because every day you're probably doing other things, like you don't worship every morning, or you stop looking at verses because you're not like in that setting.
I think it's because like at camp, like that's like your main focus for being there, like to learn about Jesus. But then like coming back from camp, and you have to like try and integrate that into like your real life, so you gotta kind of find like more of a balance between like God and, or at least you gotta find time for like God in your real life. And so that might be hard for some people, so that's probably why like they fall off a lot of the time. At camp, you're surrounded by like a whole bunch of like-minded folk, I guess. It's like everyone's there for the same reason, so it's easier to just connect with everyone.
People will go to the things that they want to do and maybe worship and like that kind of stuff. People are just like, oh, I don't want to do that right now, and eventually they just never do it. So
what does it mean to you to fight for your faith, and who do you often feel yourself fighting with the most?
I think the person I fight the most with the faith is myself, because I have so many doubts about like, what if this never happened? What if he didn't actually do that? What if someone just made this all up? It's just like fighting with myself, knowing there is a God, but like doubting things and just questioning what happened.
I was more so thinking like how she was when I was like fighting with yourself, of like questioning like, oh, is this real? And then also it's just like for certain events, like why would you let this happen, or how is this supposed to help anything?
What are things that helped you resolve that struggle or helped you build your faith during those moments? What were your go-to things to do?
Talk about it with like other people from our church after like a talk, or just being able to like express your feelings about it and then hear someone else's feelings about it and like what they took away from it.
I think just like looking it up in like the Bible, and like also as she said, like asking questions and see like if other people have those same questions.
Raise your hand if you have ever been to like a Christian camp or weekend retreat with a church. Okay. Well, that didn't help me at all, because I can't see you. But I am guessing a few of you have been or have been to something similar. Well, those camps and retreats are so great because they allow you to get away from regular day-to-day routines. When you're away, you can think more deeply about God and faith and life than you normally do. And I would make this guess that when it was over, your faith was stronger and your commitment was deeper. And many of you experienced God in a fresh and powerful way in those places. But then it's back to the regular routine, right? Get up for school, come home from school, do homework, go to sleep, go to the next day and do it all again. And faith just seems to evaporate in that kind of schedule. And eventually all that's left from an amazing weekend retreat or week at camp is just memories of the time when you felt like your faith had a chance to grow. And right now our routines are broken even more so, and we're just trying to figure out how normal happens. And we're transitioning into a new way of life right now and trying to figure things out. And in all of that, we're struggling with this idea of, where does my faith fit into now? And it's almost like our schedules are broken so much and our routine is all out of whack that we're just trying to figure out, how do we even do life anymore? And that's why I want you to understand that faith is a fight. The Apostle Paul, the man who wrote that verse about the armor of God, and as he was nearing the end of his life, wrote another verse that I want to show you in his letter to a guy named Timothy. 2 Timothy 4:7. I have fought the good fight, and I have remained faithful. When it comes to our faith, when it comes to this piece of our lives, something that should affect every piece of our lives, we have to recognize that it's not just something that happens, but something that we have to fight for. And here is the big idea for today. Your faith is worth fighting for. Now I want to make that personal and say it out loud with me. And yeah, it might be weird to do this at home, but just try it. Say it, my faith is worth fighting for. My faith is worth fighting for. There are a lot of things worth fighting for in this world. Family, friendships, rights, health, wellness. Our faith is right there amongst those. And as followers of Jesus, it's the most important piece because it can dramatically affect all those other areas of our lives. My faith is worth fighting for. So, when it comes to our faith, there are ways that we can prepare for the fight that will present itself. There are people and forces that are fighting against you. Satan, the devil, your enemy, is fighting against your faith. Certain friends of yours are fighting against your faith. And sometimes you even end up fighting against your own faith. Faith is a fight. And when you're in a fight, it helps to have armor. So if you desire to stand firm in your faith and be prepared, then you need to put on the full armor of God. We are going to be spending a good amount of time walking our way through these verses. Ephesians 6:10 through 18, where Paul outlines the pieces of the armor. And we're to do our best to make these concepts very practical, but here's something that we need from you. First off, recognize the fight. See, we can sit idly by and be passive in this, but there is a very real enemy, Satan the devil, that wants you to live disconnected from God as far as we can get and fall short of our full potential. Recognizing that we have to fight for our faith, that we all have a personal role in this, is the first step. Second, be prepared. There's this quote I love: if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's true. When the military prepares for combat, it's not just about putting on the gear and walking out there. There's a physical and mental preparation that is continually taking place. Someone who is trained in using a sword and fighting in armor did so daily, all the time. And the same is true when it comes to our faith. Preparation starts each day. It starts in how we spend our time. It starts in how we prioritize our faith, how we talk about our faith with our friends and families. It's how we choose to live out our faith daily. You don't just put on some protective equipment and go out and do battle. You train and you get better at it. You challenge yourself daily to get stronger so that you can face bigger and bigger obstacles. My challenge to you is this throughout this series. What would it look like for you to take this seriously and start strengthening your daily fight for your faith so that you can stand firm in the face of any trial or challenge, believing that your faith is worth fighting for? Wherever you are in your faith, today is an opportunity to strengthen it. And maybe it's just a first step, but maybe it's a long overdue step. But today, take ownership of your faith. It's not your parents' job to do this. It's not my job to do this. It's yours. It's a mark of maturity, and it's a necessary step that we all need to take. Your faith is not just going to change overnight. It takes intentional steps from you. But I promise that if you take those continual steps, you will grow. You will experience strengthening, and you will be able to stand firm in the face of whatever challenge or trial you may face. And we're going to be spending a good amount of time walking our way through these verses. La 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 la. La la la.